as interest rates are extremely high in the UK. Where the last time the base rate was this high was in the financial crisis in 2008. Who would you blame for this? Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, Bank of England, who would you blame?
Well, it's a combination of factors, isn't it? If we're honest, it's global to some extent. Ukraine, the consequences of Ukraine, and undoubtedly the problem for the government is two things really. Liz Truss made it considerably worse. And there is a sense, it's interesting, speaking to more and more people, spoke to a relatively successful small business person today, there's this sense of the government is not on their side anymore and is not doing enough to help people. And this is a very powerful feeling from people who in the past have been quite loyal supporters of the Conservative Party, who feel that they're completely out of touch. They don't realise how much pain people are going through, and the measures that they're taking are totally inconsequential in terms of the scale of the challenge. So it would be churlish to say it's all the government's fault, rocketing inflation, because it isn't, right? But the problem, as I say, Liz Truss undoubtedly made it considerably worse, and the government aren't doing enough to help people or businesses.
Well, I agree with Ivan totally, but I'm just going to put a different spin to it. When Liz Truss was ousted, people predicted, the rate will go up to 5-6%, and like this will happen, that will happen. There will be a mortgage crisis, there will be an economic crash, recession, and then while she was in power, Jeremy Hunt reversed everything, and still we are facing the same situation.
Facing a recession, right?
We are. I think let the next two quarterly data come out, and we will be facing a recession. I think more than that, and I'm coming from working from the hospital, meeting friends, on an everyday basis. There is such negativity.
Yeah.
And it's just I have friends who mostly in the NHS, who are looking for the first ticket out. Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, and it's just there is that's maybe something you can say the government is at fault for, and that's where maybe Boris's charisma used to work a lot. He, even through the pandemic, he was double thumbs up, and there was whether we like things or not, even Tony Blair, he used to enthuse positivity, and yeah, there is a doom and gloom and negativity about this country, and it's sad.
And what Shadman's right. I think it's the scale of the challenges, but it's the sense of helplessness and hopelessness, and a sense that nobody can make it any better.
Yeah.
The truth is that more and more people will vote Labour because it's a little risk change, and we might as well give something different a chance. And that's, I think, a real problem for the Conservative Party. It's no longer a question of whether they'll lose the next election, it's whether they can avoid a landslide defeat. I really believe that. But if you look, as Shadman says, what's frightening is that there is a helplessness, a fatalism, a despondency, a desperation about a nation in decline. And that is so sad for what is a great country. And Shadman is kind of right about Boris, but he's wrong. So he's right about the early days of Boris. Boris definitely gave people that sense of positivity and enthusiasm through the bad times, the good times. But of course, people stopped falling for that once his trust had gone. So if Boris was out there now saying how wonderful it's going to be, nobody would believe a word he said. Okay, so he no longer would be able to provide that message. I would say one thing about an incoming new government. New governments have a vigour and an enthusiasm and a freshness and a passion that sometimes gives people a lift and a country a lift. I really believe that. And I think that it is possible an incoming Labour government could achieve that. But of course, a big part of achieving that will be policies that help people through the pain that they're going through. And it remains to be seen precisely in detail what those policies are going to be. Now, Labour Party has been criticised for that. They're saying they have no policies. The truth is, coming into election, they will have policies, right? People may not like them, they may love them, they may not think they're good enough, but they'll have policies. So there'll be an opportunity at that point to make a judgment. But we desperately need some sense of hope and optimism. I think Brexit is probably having a far worse effect than we'd ever imagined, if we're all honest. And I'm not sure it's Brexit per se, it's what we've done subsequent to Brexit. And I think, it's ironic because what Liz Truss kept saying is we need a growth strategy. The problem with that is they've been in power for sort of 10 years, so what were they doing? But we do need a growth strategy, and they still haven't got one. So this whole levelling up agenda, the investment in the regions, the investing in the jobs of the future, the industries of the future, looking at where we can add value. Rishi Sunak does say some interesting things, for example, about artificial intelligence, but there's no time to waste. It's no going to America and say to Biden, Britain wants to become the centre of excellence for artificial intelligence. Wonderful, but what are you actually doing about to make that happen? So look, massive challenges, difficult, serious problems, a lot of pain facing ordinary people, including the middle classes. Let's make no mistake. This gentleman I spoke to today, he would probably describe himself as middle class. He made the point he works for a living as well as being a businessman. So he makes it's a sense that nobody gets it. Nobody realises how painful and challenging and difficult this era is.
The other thing is, why would anyone in America, any of the big giant companies, move to UK with this economic forecast, with this high corporation tax, and the pound? Well, the pound after the dump under the Liz Truss.
You're saying it's not just interest rates; it's everything else.
It's everything else. Look, I was listening.
Utility bills.
I was listening to an economist the other day. They said a perception of negativity is difficult to come out of rather than a recession. An economic recession
like
can
a confidence.
It's a confidence. Once you miss a payment or something, or once you go into recession, it's difficult to come out of. And last month's the data that are coming out in regards to inflation was a big punch in the gut sort of thing, because if the inflation had come out down to even 7.6 or 7.7 even, like, okay, inflation is coming down. The fact that it stayed the same, the Tories have given up. The Tories have basically given up everything. One thing you said about Boris, I totally agree. Credibility is everything in politics, in every job. And Boris lost his own credibility, and he has to take blame for it. But the point I was making is a positive leader, like Zelensky. Throughout war, he has been like...
Shadman's right,
Zelensky gives hope.
He's the only world leader that I think objectively one can respect, and that's quite scary. Then if you think about the challenges that we're all facing, and you look at people leading countries right now, he's the only leader I really feel I can have any respect for and confidence, and he's given his people a tremendous amount of belief, self-belief, and unity.
I'll say this, that I don't want to move on, but just one thing. In terms of Labour, maybe I'm coming from the centre right. I do not really get much faith in Keir Starmer, but the person I get faith in is Rachel Reeves. She really talks sense. I do not agree with every Labour policy, and Labour has announced a lot of policy, education, NHS. They are announcing policies recently. They're obviously, as the election comes in April, the policies start coming out. But like Rachel Reeves, when she speaks, even though I don't agree, okay, she knows her stuff.